Welcome back. We were discussing properties of integrals, abstract integrals. So, all the properties of abstract integrals are proved in exactly the same way. You prove it for simple functions first, then you prove the property for non-negative measurable functions, and then you generalize for any measurable function. Okay. So, that is the way all results are proved, regard all properties of integrals are proved. Okay. So, we were in the middle of discussing a number of properties. So, I think we were discussing property number 6, which said that if g is non-negative and integral g d mu equals 0 equal to 0, then g equals 0 mu almost everywhere, right. This is the property we were discussing. So, the proof of this is as follows. Assume the contrary. Let B be the set where g of omega is strictly bigger than 0, right, and assume mu b is. So, you want to prove that mu b is 0, right. To get a contradiction, you assume that mu b is not 0, that it is strictly positive. Okay. Now, you want to show that this leads to a contradiction, right. So, then we defined, let B n be defined as the set of all omegas for which g of omega is greater than 1 over n, right. This is what we defined, correct. Good. Now, we also know that B n's are nested increasing or nested decreasing. Nested B n is contained in, is that correct? Correct. And so, we have and union I equals 1 through infinity B n is equal to B, right. We are saying that this set is equal to that set. In order to show this, you have to show that this is contained in this and this is contained in this. So, one way containment, the containment in that direction is very easy, right, because if you are contained in any of the B n's, it is immediately clear that g of omega is greater than 1 by n, therefore, g of omega is bigger than 0. But on the other hand, if you want to show the containment that way, that B is contained in this, for you take any omega for which g of omega is bigger than 0, then there exists a k for which g of omega is bigger than 1 by k. So, there exists a k for which omega is in B k, therefore, it belongs to the union. So, these two sets are equal. Okay. Then we used, then what we said is we can use continuity of measures, right. So, we said mu b is equal to limit n tending to infinity mu of. So, this is mu of the measure of that is equal to, I must actually write B I, is it not? Yeah. So, the measure of that is equal to limit n tending to infinity mu of B n, right. This is the continuity theorem for measures for nested increasing sets, right. Mu B n, is that fine? All right. So, this is an important relation. So, we have assumed that mu b is strictly positive. So, we have written a strictly positive mu b in terms of a limit of a sequence mu b n, right, which means that for all n greater than some n naught, mu b n should remain positive, correct. So, you are approaching a positive number, right, this limit is a positive number you have assumed. So, this guy, the sequence must be positive for all n greater than some n naught, correct, agreed. So, actually all this we need is there exists, thus there exists k such that mu b k is strictly positive, right. This has to be the case. Thus, integral g d mu will be at least as big as, see, integral g d mu is the supremum of is the supremum of simple functions, the integral of supremum of the integral of simple functions. One such function would be to say that, see, the function 1 over k over b k, right, will have this property, right, it's definitely smaller than g, correct, by definition. So, you will clearly have that g integral g d mu will be bigger than or equal to 1 over k times mu b k, correct. Got that? Because this is a supremum of all simple this is a supremum of the integral of simple functions, right. An example of a simple function which is less than or equal to g is the function which takes the value 1 by k over the set mu b k or the set b k rather, correct with me, because over the set b k g of omega is bigger than 1 by k, correct. So, the function 1 by k, the function which is constant at 1 by k over the set b k is a lower bound, is a simple function which is a lower bound on g. So, this must hold. Now, what do you know about that guy? No, this is bigger than 0, right. Yeah, so you take that k, right. So, and this is a contradiction. Why is it a contradiction? It violates this, right. So, this assumption must be wrong. So, mu b equal to 0, okay. Are there any questions on this proof? So, in particular for a non-negative random variable, if expectation of x is 0, then x is equal to 0 almost surely, right. Property number 7. Property number 7 is a very fundamental property of integrals called linearity. Integral g plus h d mu is equal to integral g d mu plus integral h d mu. Okay. So, this is the integral form of the statement. If you want to state it for a random variable, what will it look like? Expectation of x plus y, right, expectation of x plus y is equal to expectation of x plus expectation of y. This is always true. This is a very fundamental property. The integrals are linear operators on functions. Okay. So, linearity includes this, but the next one I am going to say is also is a scaling. So, you integrate integral a g d mu will be a integral g d mu. So, put together it is linearity, all right. So, the proving this, so again right, this is true for any measurable functions g and h as long as all the integrals are well defined, all right. But as usual the way you prove it is you first prove it for simple functions. Can you prove this for simple functions? If g and h are simple, can you prove this? The g you can write it as sum of weighted sum of indicators, h also you write it as a weighted sum of indicators, and you can from the definition itself you can verify that this is true, right. For simple functions this is very easy. Okay. Now, going beyond simple functions, the next step will be to look for prove this for non negative functions which are not necessarily simple, right. So, that is very difficult to do if you take the supremum definition I gave. Okay. So, one of the things about say there are a couple of ways of defining the integral. The way we defined it 6 of the 8 properties turn out to be very easy, or 7 of the 8 properties turn out to be very easy, but linearity turns out to be very difficult to prove using the supremum definition. What we will do therefore is we will prove monotone convergence theorem, which is a very important theorem in integration theory, and then get back to proving linearity, all right. So, because the definition we gave is conducive for proving many other properties, but it is not very conducive for proving linearity. Okay. So, we have to take a slightly difficult route through this fundamental theorem called monotone convergence theorem, which we will do later, actually we will do very soon, maybe next lecture. All right. So, I will only say that this is easy to prove for simple functions, non negative functions and more general functions we will get back later. Okay. Let me not worry about proving this, and similarly for random variables this is always true as long as all the expectations are well defined. Okay. Again the proof will be along the same lines, you prove it for simple random variables and then use monotone convergence theorem to prove linearity. So, this is expectations are linear no matter what else is true. Okay. X and y need not have any further structure to them. Okay. X and y may be have any joint CDF whatsoever, they may have different marginals, they may have any joint distributions whatsoever, they may not be independent or any such thing, right. It is always true that expectation of x plus y is equal to expectation of x plus expectation of y, and similarly this generalizes to any finite sum, right. If you have a finite sum of g 1 g 2 g n, you can always write it as the sum of those n integrals. Similarly, if you have n random variables, expectation of x 1 plus x 2 plus dot x n is equal to sum of the individual expectations. True for finite. Okay. I am not saying about if this is finite, if the number of terms you are summing is finite, this is always true. Okay. That is very easy, because if you have x plus y plus z, you can write this as x plus y plus z and invoke the same thing, right. Any questions on this? We get to the proof later. Okay. In scaling. So, this is scaling property of integration. So, you can, this just says that you can bring the constant out of integration. This is something you have been doing all along, and it is true for abstract integrals as well, right. And similarly for random variables. So, expectation of, so if a is greater than or equal to 0, expectation of a x will be equal to a times expectation of x. Okay. How do you prove that? There is only one way to prove things, right. So, you start off with simple functions again, you take that g is equal to a weighted sum of indicators and write out. So, a g will also be a simple function, whenever g is simple a g will also be simple, that is because I have assumed a is bigger than or equal to 0, right. So, and then you write that integral out, and then you verify that you write that integral out and verify that they are equal, right. It is a very trivial exercise in. So, for simple functions it is easy. Now, for non-negative functions, so for non-negative functions you have to apply the supremum definition. So, the way it works is this. So, a equal to 0, the result is obvious, they are both 0, right. So, let us assume a bigger than 0. Okay. So, proof assume a bigger than 0. Clearly, if q is in S of g, then a q is in S of a g, correct. Actually, it is not just clearly, so it is actually if and only if, as a matter of fact, correct. What does that mean? What does that mean? So, any simple function q which is less than or equal to g, right, if this is the case, then a q is a q is a simple function less than or equal to a g and vice versa, right. So, that is very clear, right. So, now you apply the supremum definition. So, you have integral a g d mu, right. So, I have to be a little bit careful here. So, I have to look over the supremum of all q, let us say q prime in S of a g, is not it, of integral q, well, q prime d mu, is that right. So, that is by definition. See, but this q prime is a q for some q in S g, correct. So, I can write this as supremum over q in S g integral a q d mu, correct. Maybe I am skipping one step, you can write it as a q belongs to S of a g, right, and then write the same thing, right. So, is this okay with me? So, now what happens? So, this is a simple function now, right. For simple functions I can bring the constants out, because you can explicitly prove that to be the case, right. I can bring the constant out here, right. Can I bring it out here? I eventually have to bring it out here, right. So, bringing it out here is not a problem, but since a is non negative I can bring it out here as well, correct. So, that is equal to supremum. So, supremum q belongs to S g A integral q d mu. This is because q is simple, right. Now, this A is non-negative. So, the supremum of that set of numbers will be the same as A times the supremum of that, right. So, this is equal to A times the supremum of. So, this is because A is non-negative. Okay. Q belongs to S g integral q d mu, and this is equal to A times integral g d mu, correct, by definition. Okay. So, I hope this is correct, right. I mean, look over this argument very carefully. It looks like everything is obvious, but each step requires a little bit of thinking, right. You have to be careful in writing this down. Okay. Yeah, so this comes out because of q is a simple function, and the A eventually gets out of here because A is positive. Okay. All right, great. So, I think I am done with properties. Yeah, so I am done with the basic. So, the elementary properties of integration I am actually done now. Okay. So, the properties that remain are the more fundamental theorems of integration, right. So, we will do, actually there is just one fundamental theorem, and that is the monotone convergence theorem. The monotone convergence theorem, which is regarded as the cornerstone of integration theory, and if there is one theorem in integration theory which is which is the single most important one, it is clearly the monotone convergence theorem. We will also do dominated convergence theorem, which follows as a corollary to monotone convergence theorem, and there is also a result, a very well known result called Fatou's lemma. Okay. That is a result I will mention, but not prove. Okay. It is not included in your syllabus. Okay. But monotone convergence theorem and dominated convergence theorem are very useful in practice, and they are very important theorems. So, I will those we will do in proper detail. Okay. Before we get into that, so I think there is one little unfinished business from the past. If you remember, I mentioned something called the inclusion exclusion principle for probability measures. Remember what that says? It says probability of A union B is probability of A plus probability of B minus probability of A union B, and similarly for n such events. If you have union over n events, you have to pull out the intersection, add back intersections, and so on, right. Remember that formula. So, what I said back then when I was dealing with properties of probability measures was that you can prove it using induction, right. It is true, you can prove it using induction, but now that we have done expectations and integration, there is a very straightforward proof of getting the inclusion exclusion principle. So, those of you who actually bothered to write down the induction proof will probably know how messy it was. It's doable, there is no intellectual challenge in it, but it was you have to sit down and do it carefully, right. It is a very messy exercise, but we will see that using indicator random variables you can prove the inclusion exclusion principle very easily. Okay. Let me just indicate that right now.